this album is really just like about Kendrick kind of just dealing with his own mind and his own traumas and his own past and trying to like, move through that, whether it be his experiences with abuse or, cycles of abuse that he was victim to, but then also kind of engaged in himself through like, infidelity, basically trying to be a better man and a better dad for his kids, trying to not kind of drive himself crazy over thinking that he owes the world something or that he owes the world like, him saving it because he has a platform and he has like a larger voice than most in his position do. I think it's a pretty significant moment of personal metamorphosis for him. And, it's for that and many reasons. I think the record is pretty interesting and pretty compelling. He goes over his issues with his dad, his issues with his mom. It's kind of like a big fat fucking therapy session, honestly.
What do you I mean, I feel like in a lot of circumstances, art that tries to make change, and especially dive into issues that are outside of the scope of their own personal privileges, like specifically talking about trans-related issues, which Kendrick Lamar's song, that's been like, something that a lot of people are criticizing and talking about, and it's also happens to be the only song that I've like listened to multiple times on the album, but. In a lot of circumstances, I feel like when people try to reach outside or make or talk about experiences of other marginalized communities from the framework of from their own personal framework, it's often really limited, but it can come across really lame. I like kind of cringe, you know what I mean? Like the Macklemore Same Love type, music.
Right.
Do you feel like it's not that?
I hear what you're saying there. Like, I see what you're getting at. Like, I'll say, like, just as a point of comparison, like, think of like the opening lines of both of these tracks. Like Kendrick starts off that track with like his personal experience having, at least a couple very close trans family members of note to talk about, and his experience kind of like, knowing and kind of like growing to accept that this, way of life and this identity switch is valid through just his experience with family members. Whereas like Macklemore's connection off the bat for his reasoning of, kind of going into the same love thing was like, what, when I was in the first grade, I thought I was gay. It's like, no, that's not enough. That's not enough to like, to like, give yourself a pass to speak on the issue. It's like, I thought I was gay when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And the thing is, it doesn't even, to me at least, and as a cis guy, it doesn't seem like he's trying to speak for anyone or speak over or speak about, the movement for, rights or deprivation of rights or anything like that. It just kind of seems like his effort at the end of the day is just merely to humanize these figures in his life who happen to have this same kind of experience. And I mean, obviously, like beyond that, the hope for him is most likely like, oh, well, like I heard this song that kind of like, opened me to the idea that this is like okay and acceptable and so on and so forth. And, he doesn't really get into the politics of it as much as he kind of gets into, this is my personal experience with people in my own life who've also kind of like, dealt with these things of like gender identity and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I think that was important, and especially because like I feel like in a lot of instances, songs like this, art like this, is not meant for the target audience of art like this specifically is people in his community rather than like the larger, I guess the larger queer community that's very active on Twitter. Like that's not who this is for.
It's not for people like his uncle. It's for people who are completely out of the fucking know.
Yeah,
it's for people who don't know. I mean, for somebody who's walking that, path, I mean, this track probably isn't going to bring too much to you other than, maybe the assurance that, okay, there's at least another very visible figure who, is not like, demeaning me or my community. I mean, it's certainly like a breath of fresh air in comparison to like how Chappelle approaches things, for example. Especially at this point where like any opportunity that he can just like shit on that community again, he just takes it. This is very much the opposite in tone, and again, I think he does a good job of kind of sidestepping the politics and kind of the controversy and kind of the ways in which this subject matter has been employed in the culture war, and just kind of keeps it strictly to, I have these family members, they were given hell by other members of my family, and like sort of a preacher figure that I mentioned in the song too, really for no reason, because they're just as innocent and loving and as valid as anybody else who I'm related to. And he just kind of keeps it there, and I think in that respect it works.
No, absolutely. I appreciated it. Where would you put this album in Kendrick's discography, if you don't mind me asking?
Would it probably? Somebody asked me that just today, and I like had to rank out his catalog to answer that question. I would probably go Damn on the bottom, then Section 80, then this record, then Untitled Unmastered, then Good Kid, Mad City, and then TPAP at the top. So this one's pretty in the middle for me, but it's in the middle of a really fantastic catalog. So I mean, even being in the middle of a Kendrick catalog is still something.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. People are okay. That was that drew up a lot of hell yeses.
Was that a hot take?
I guess I don't know. People are fucking freaking out. Does this happen normally, where you just give a take on music and people are like, "What the fuck? Fuck you!" I feel like it's the only. I feel like music and sports Twitter are like the only two fucking other avenues that are like where people are so ride or die, similar to fucking politics. You know what I mean?
What are people so mad about? Damn at the bottom?
I don't fucking know, dude. But I do feel like when you say something, it's like people treat it like you're, they want to murder you. They're like, "What the fuck? How dare you, you piece of shit?"
That's every day of my life. I mean, maybe some people are unhappy I didn't rank it high enough or rank it too high.
People are pogging. They liked it.
Okay. Well, I think honestly, I think it's a pretty. To be honest, and I think this is true of most of my takes. I think it's pretty reasonable. I mean, maybe a lot of people don't agree, obviously, because people are jumping down my throat all the time. But like, to say this record is in the middle of a super solid discography, I think is no small feat. Because the thing is, like, the albums that are above it are some of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. Like Good Kid, Mad City, and To Pimp a Butterfly. There's not too many hip hop records that are better than those albums just across the board. Kendrick's not just going to like bust out another record that's just as good as those two just casually. You know what I mean? But again, with that being said, I think there's a lot of creative production across it. Did you listen to We Cry Together?
Is that the first song?
The one where they're fighting.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah. What did you think of that one?
I mean, don't ask me for my music taste. It was good. I have like the brain cells that look, I'm sorry. I'm very honest. I'm brutally honest about this, but like, it's just, I don't really listen to a lot of music. So no, I don't have any, I feel like it's not my place to approach the subject matter other than to, I mean, I obviously do a lot of analysis of culture regardless. And especially in like in avenues where it merges with politics, all art technically is political, but especially when it's like overtly political, then I am a little bit more interested. But
well, I mean, look, I think the record overall it's a very good album. It's a very interesting album. I think the way that he progresses over this kind of story of personal growth is a lot like To Pimp a Butterfly, but he's kind of just like doing it at a different point in his life. And he's kind of going through a different sort of progression where he's kind of realizing that he's harboring all of these very negative and toxic feelings, and and that's kind of manifesting in behavior that he is disgusted with and are hurting, people around him, specifically his family and his significant other. And he's just kind of on this path to kind of work through that and get rid of it. If you do go back to the record, and I recommend that you do, I would try to take it in terms of like the first disc is really kind of representative of that toxic behavior, not entirely from front to back, but like the most toxic and negative moments that he's trying to transcend all happen on that disc. And meanwhile, the second disc is very much about like trying to grow past all of that and kind of coming to realizations and revelations that kind of allow him to put things like the toxic fighting in a relationship, or things like his daddy issues, or things like what he kind of sees as almost like an internalized racism toward white people. That's how he frames it on the track "Worldwide Steppers," or his desire to kind of like thrust off of him things like clout chasing and materialism and so on and so forth. All of that comes up on the first disc. The second disc is very much about like trying to just get rid of all that stuff in his mind, and that means like rejecting all of that or putting it in perspective, understanding it better, not allowing himself to become a victim of his past or things that have happened to him in the past. It also means on the track Savior, him getting rid of this thing that I've talked about and some other fans as well, his Savior complex, which he's like very much kind of worn on his sleeve for song after song for quite a few years now, where he sort of seems to have this responsibility on himself to like again use his platform to kind of like save other people, save the world, so on and so forth. And he kind of gives up on that in a way in order to just like kind of make himself more stable, which I think ultimately is a good thing. I hope that doesn't mean that he sort of expresses less about himself personally in the world at large from this point on this record. I hope that that realization doesn't coincide with kind of the feeling that like, well, whatever I do, it's all kind of futile anyway, so who even cares? I would think that if he had that attitude, he wouldn't be addressing as many substantive issues as he is on this project. So I hope he just kind of continues on that path, but kind of from this understands that he doesn't need to kind of like be Superman about it. He could just be an artist who kind of highlights things that he thinks are kind of worth highlighting.
If that was the case, I feel like he wouldn't have. If he was truly not interested, if he was truly disinterested in making more political commentary through his art, I feel like he wouldn't have made the choices that he made on this album. As far as what I've seen, and as far as what people have criticized him for, one of the things I wanted to ask you is about Kodak Black. I said yeah. Kodak Black. The appearance of Kodak Black in the album. How do you reconcile with that, in your opinion? When you compare it to some of the tones of the album itself, whenever he's talking about all of these other, whenever he's offering social commentary.
Yeah, that's something I talk about in the review as well, because obviously, like, there's a couple of things about Kodak that make him a questionable inclusion on the record, not just like his own past with instances of abuse, but on top of it, the other thing that's a little odd is Kendrick kind of going as far as he did to tie himself to the personal story of Nipsey Hussle on the Heart Part 5. And Kodak Black said some very like in hot water stuff about his widow that is not great. Frankly, I know he did apologize for it, but it's something that I'm sure a lot of people have rightfully like not forgotten and let go of. I think the inclusion of Kodak Black, if you actually listen to the record, listen to the first interlude that he's included on, listen to the second track he's included on, and listen to the mentions that Kendrick has of him on the song Savior, where he mentions like having seen himself in Kodak Black. I think he's essentially using him as a poster child for, of course, like, I'm Kendrick Lamar, you're my audience, you love me, you think I'm going to go through some kind of like immense, incredible metamorphosis on no matter what album I give to you. But here's my challenge. Would you also believe that of Kodak
Hold
Black?
on. You're completely muted now. I don't know why.
I'm muted now?
Oh, you're good now. You're back. You said metamorphosis.
Yeah, Kendrick expects and understands that his audience is going to give him the benefit of the doubt no matter what, and they're going to see and understand and believe in whatever metamorphosis he's undergoing that he presents in front of them. But I think the challenge here is he's giving the audience Kodak Black as well, and through the words of Kodak on like the interlude that he's on, there's kind of this implication that he's undergone a metamorphosis as well, where he's realized the toxicity of his past. And I think Kendrick is trying to put his audience in purposely an awkward position because he knows that his audience is not into Kodak's music. They're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. They know that he has like a different demeanor about him and a different past about him than Kendrick has. And I think he's trying to like, again, challenge his audience to be like, can you believe that Kodak could undergo a change that would put him in a better place if you can believe that I can? Which again, I think he kind of implies that even further on the song Savior when he says that he sees himself in Kodak. I'm going to say personally, like, I see what he's doing. Do I think it's perfectly reasoned? No. But just by like a point of comparison, like I don't have to be overly charitable to get what he's getting at, and it does like smack a lot less disgustingly than like, let's say, Kanye West with his multiple inclusions of Marilyn Manson in the Donda album cycles. Manson, who's proven himself to be completely unrepentant.
Yeah,
In
well,
all
also he didn't actually do the time in any meaningful
right,
capacity. Like redemption,
right.
Now, I'm not. Don't see this as me like defending Kodak Black, but obviously, a big thing that is missing from the American consciousness is the attitude of rehabilitation and how predisposed we are towards like having this incredibly draconian attitude towards like punishing, especially black men, but certainly just punishing everyone whenever they're guilty of a crime, like actually guilty of committing a crime, right? What do you do in that situation? Like, how is a person supposed to redeem themselves? Now, I don't know if Kodak Black personally has done anything to redeem himself. From what I understand, that might not necessarily be the case. But I think that
Yeah.
as far as someone like Kendrick Lamar, I think that that is an important thing. It's an important thing to talk about considering its immediate consequences on the black community, historically speaking, like the American attitude towards, feeling
Yeah, I mean
like
that's
no one can redeem themselves, especially not black people. Now, Kodak's crime, of course, is, you know, pretty fucking gross. It's the worst. It's one of the worst things you could do. A crime which he accepted a plea agreement to. So. I don't know if that was the, I don't know if that was the person to, I don't know if that was the person to actually try to redeem. But I guess if you can if you can show that someone is on a path towards, bettering themselves, it's someone as edge case as like Kodak Black, I think maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like as again, as I listened to the record, it kind of became apparent, especially how Kendrick kind of goes over on the song Mother I Sober, which if you haven't listened to that track, I highly recommend it because that's kind of the very song where he goes over just in general, like specific to the black community, these cycles of abuse, intergenerational abuse, dating back hundreds of years with, obviously the abuse that was thrust onto them through systematic enslavement. And, just kind of like portraying himself as somebody who was locked into that cycle. He obviously wants the audience to take away that Kodak Black is somebody who's a victim of that cycle as well. And, again, while it's kind of interesting because as you kind of said there, like, well, I could think of individuals or I could think of this or I could think of that where maybe there's a better person who I could pick for this where it wouldn't go over so badly or it wouldn't stir so much controversy. But in a way, it seems like for Kendrick, that was kind of the point. Not necessarily the controversy, but the fact that the audience would see it and have a difficult time wrestling with it because they're not going to be ready to forgive Kodak in the same way that, somebody who we could easily see or search has maybe sort of like done themselves better or sort of made a more public show of whatever they did to redeem themselves past such an action or, part of their past. So it seems like the fact that you are going to be hit with this, sort of like decision where you have to really like think about whether or not you can give the guy the benefit of the doubt that he is trying. It kind of seems like that difficulty was sort of the point.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone can try to get people to understand uh, uh, someone like Kodak Black or see that like someone like Kodak Black could change. Which, by the way, like I said, I don't even know if he has. So there is
Yeah.
that. I mean,
No,
I know he
again, just
apologized. He
as
took
a
a
point of
plea
comparison,
deal.
what I mean
What's
here.
up?
Like I was just going to say, just like again, as a point of comparison to what I said earlier, like Kendrick's approach here isn't necessarily like whatever he says goes and just forgive him and it's all water under the bridge. You know what I mean? Because there is sort of like this implication of there has to be some kind of atonement. There has to be a change. There has to be a realization that you did wrong and that you're going to try to do better. And like, meanwhile, like again, with Manson in the Donda cycle, like Kanye's approach to these things historically has been like, he didn't do it.
Yeah,
He didn't even do
free
it.
Cosby.
It's like it's all just made up, and that's like again the complete opposite of what Kendrick is like offering here in terms of like a point of view. Again, was like Kodak the best choice, and is it the most clearly and well reasoned argument or sort of like, implication on the record, not necessarily, because you do have to kind of like pick up notes and themes from a variety of different tracks to kind of like get the whole picture of the point he's trying to make. But again, after multiple listens to the album, I see it, I hear it, and I don't necessarily have to like squint my eyes or be overly charitable to get it. Like I see what he's getting at, and it kind of makes sense, and if there is a continual public fallout over it, I mean, I think at this point he's probably already like reconciled, well, I'm probably going to get backlash for this, and whatever it is, I'm going to take it.
I mean, it's definitely interesting for him to put himself out there for Kodak Black in particular, and not try to rehabilitate the image of like someone else. That's I can't even really think about anyone that's like been, I guess, been through similar circumstances. But it definitely does seem like something that's a little bit bigger than like Kanye West, for example, trying to go out to bat and like forced to make sure that like the baby's on the album, you know what I mean, or Marilyn Manson's on the album. Obviously, these two are not like in any way, shape, or form. Like they're not the severity. Well, I guess Marilyn Manson is different, but the severity of like the baby's actions are nowhere near like Kodak Black's. But
yeah, but with DaBaby, like Kanye's attitude is the same thing. Like with DaBaby, the attitude is like, just forget about it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it's more like hyper focus on the cancel culture element of it, cancel culture component of it. Whereas maybe there's a larger conversation to be had about, again, America's draconian attitudes.
That's kind of a good point to bring up of comparison as well. It's like Kanye's answer to cancel culture is just ignore it. Doesn't matter. Anybody complaining is just a bitch anyway. And Kendrick's answer to it instead is like, maybe we should just like try to give people an opportunity to actually like atone. You know what I mean? But still actually like expecting some kind of atonement in a similar fashion. Doesn't need to be sort of like displayed dramatically, because there is also an element of the record where he talks about the performativeness of the action of making the records that he does. But there does need to be some kind of atonement or metamorphosis along the lines of kind of the progression of realizations that he's making for himself on the record,
right,
in order to be on the other side of that.
Okay, we're talking about all this, but like, why do you think Yeet is the greatest artist of all time?
I think it's because of the big money and the big Tonka trucks.
Okay, are you? Do you feel the same way about Blade? Are you a drainer?
No, Blade doesn't talk so much about big Tonka trucks or anything like that.
No, I know. I'm just
like
saying. Are you Drain Gang?
Entirely different set of reasons.
Are you a drainer?
I've been a drainer since I would say the latest Blade and Echo 2K project. Yeah, I'm a little drained on that one.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm just asking these things because like people are. This is what I have to do. You know what I mean? Otherwise, people are going to be very upset. I love that. Okay, more questions for you. How do we free Young Thug?
I don't think there's any freeing Young Thug, man. Those RICO charges are fucking heavy.
I mean, it's pretty. It's pretty. I don't know.
Being connected to a rental car that was used in a shooting. I don't know, man. That's pretty big.
I mean, yeah, but also I feel like the RICO charges, other than that rental car thing, is like every new detail that emerges from the RICO charges are like so fucking ridiculous and so expansive. What?
I was just saying, calling a hit on that guy and they had a tap on the phone.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But I think that on top of that, it doesn't seem like they're only going to hit him with that. They're going to hit him with like, that's the reason why they're saying this is a gang, this is organized crime, and I feel like YSL itself is not like is not an organized criminal enterprise in the way that they are setting it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not like along the same lines of efficiency or whatever as like some kind of like Italian mafioso Chicago crime family from decades ago, sure. But the thing is, like, there's probably enough criminal activity at play for them to have done what they did, and most likely because you have to look at all the recent examples of like Rod Wave and Pooh Shiesty. Like the cops have really been actively trying to like up their game in terms of like nabbing rappers and jailing them.
Yeah, it's kind of whack. I think they should get some gimmies. You know what I mean? A couple freebies, couple
Well, I mean,
mulligans.
I would say like people really need to be more aware of it because like they're catching a lot of these people off of like their digital paper trail, unfortunately, and there's no privacy anymore. There's no privacy anymore. Whatever the fuck the thing is like a friend of mine, Sean C. I saw him do a video today, and he was kind of bringing up some stuff that like I wasn't even aware of because I don't follow Thugger's social media like that. But he's like, there's actual posts that were on his Instagram story where he's like, talking about getting at certain people and making threats and so on
Yeah,
and so
but
forth.
that's
And
like, see, that's what I'm saying. That's like artistic liberty. I feel like that there's a reason why the ACLU considers like this to be a grave offense against the First Amendment because it's like artistic expression and like things that you're saying on social media apps. Like, it is definitely like a weird. It is definitely a very weird line to toe in that circumstance because like obviously when you end up literally having people in your community or having people like around you actually end up doing some of the things that you're talking about, which is murder and the like, then yes, then it turns into a different thing. But like I don't know, I feel like they
like
use rap music as a way to like beef up the charges, is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying he should, nor did he get arrested off of something that he posted on social media.
Yeah,
I'm saying like engaging in that kind of behavior draws attention to you, which then the cops, because let's be honest here, like this investigation or the unit that's been kind of looking into this has most likely had their eyes on him since like he pretty much got connected to that shooting that almost killed Lil Wayne when they were in the middle of their beef.
yeah.
I mean, like he's probably most likely been getting watched since then by some kind of like police unit or something because like that was a very public thing and he didn't really like do any kind of like big time for it or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, he's most likely been having people watch him or try to get connected to people who are connected to him or try to get like taps on phones or like digital paper trails, so on and so forth since that time. And I don't know. I mean, we could sit here all day and just be like, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Especially for somebody who's in the public
Well,
eye.
ultimately, what you shouldn't do is murder, or
Yeah,
so
obviously. But the
that's
thing is,
the
like,
main problem. Obviously, that's definitely
the
the
thing,
biggest issue there.
this family that he refers to it as, and like, whatever criminal activity that they were involved in from the start, predates Young Thug having a successful music career.
Yeah,
And, most likely, I mean, look at 6ix9ine, for example. Like when you come up in the music industry as somebody who is like deeply ingrained in or has affiliations with some kind of like criminal or gang related activity, it's really difficult to, once your career pops off, be like, okay, I'm all done now. We're not doing this anymore. You know what I mean? It's not like that. You know what I mean?
no,
So,
I do. I and
as a result of that, what often ends up happening is like, look, if you were involved in criminal activity before your very lucrative music career popped off, most likely all that's going to do is just make it easier for you to do criminal activity because now you're going to have extra money. Now you're going to have connections to more people. Now you're going to have more people that want to do things with you or do things for you. It's really just going to enable that behavior if you have some kind of proclivity toward that behavior because of just personal choices or past or whatever. Um,
and then
and
and then the likelihood of like committing certain acts also plays a role in the way you are seen in your industry. And I think that that probably extends your likelihood of engaging in such acts as well, or people that are still in your crew, that are still around you, that you grew up with, that are now incredibly loyal to you and see you as the reason why they can fly around in private jets and shit and have access to all this cool stuff and have like financial security, are gonna go and like actually follow through on your desires, and that also I think ultimately helps you with your street cred, which is still relatively important. Um,
yeah, and look, just add the cherry on top is the fact that like, look, policing and police and the way that systematically we deal with crime in this country is shit. And for a lot of police departments and units, like the most obvious way to go about like in their own minds like preventing crime is to arrest and sort of like flash around criminals that they could essentially use as an example. And for the communities of people who they want focusing on this sort of thing, like who's a better example than a famous rapper? You know what I mean? So like you're going to have the cops like looking out for you specifically and trying to turn you into a
Yeah, I think
statistic.
that's fucked up.
Turn you
I
into
do.
someone.
I do think that's fucked up. But like ultimately, don't do murder, obviously. But I do
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that you're
obviously.
right. It is that like I mean it's the fucking never free again saga all over again where like you have feds that are specifically pursuing rappers to make an example out of them, and it's a target rich environment. There's certainly a lot of that the consequence of material conditions play a significant role there in the development of a lot of artists that before they make it, they're doing I guess extra legal things outside of the legal system's allowance, right? Like they're engaging in criminal activity, obviously. Um, so I don't know. I do think that it's like I see the other side where I do legitimately believe that they are like cops, DAs, they are that want to make a name for themselves are 100% using like anything and everything they can to personally go after not just people in like not just people that are involved in criminal organizations that are still involved in criminal organizations and are only doing like their main source of income is just straight up doing more crimes, but instead people that are tangentially related to criminal organizations or have a background or a beginning. They found their beginnings uh, in this in this world that still end up doing you know murders
Mhm.
every now and then, which is completely unacceptable, and I totally understand that. Obviously, that needs to be punished, but um, I don't know. It's just it does something rubs me the wrong way when I see like Gunna being associated with YSL, and then like obviously he is, but you're once you fucking slap a RICO charge on or slap a RICO case on like YSL as a gang and not just like a record label that you're associated with, all of a sudden like any little thing that you might have done can be swept into that same exact like prosecution where you are now I mean you're now fucked, like using chains and hand signs and your proximity to certain people that might be in gangs like actual criminals is I don't know, it just feels like a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a one size fits all problem that, the judicial system uses like it's a solution.
Yeah, like I can never, maybe there's an example of this and I'd be very shocked to find this out, but if there was like a fucking country rapper who talks about like drunk driving and like maybe beating his fucking wife or whatever, who like literally has like known associations and known ties with the KKK, like I don't think the fucking federal government is going after the KKK and the fucking country musician in the same with the same fervor that they're going after like Atlanta rappers currently. There's no big
No,
dubs
probably
to be had there.
have no desire to, scare because here's the thing, the white community is already pretty like I would say, it's not like there's no criminal activity going on in the white community, obviously. I would say cops don't do that because the white community is pretty docile in terms of like accepting cops as like, a force of good in their
Well,
lives
yeah,
and
because
whatever
cops
the
do the
cops
gang shit.
say,
Because that cops are
you
their gang.
be legitimate in it.
Yeah, that's the reason. Because cops are doing the gang shit that and helping protect that sense of community that white people have in enclaves where they live in. You know what I mean? That's part of the reason.
Sure. Yeah, and there are a lot of cops that are in the KKK.
Yes, exactly.
There's
So
also
there's
that.
that too. Yeah. I don't know. All I do know is that oh, nice bathroom actually is a really good question for you. I'm going to ask in a second, but all I am stating is that I know from all of the empirical evidence that I know from, reading this shit is that over prosecuting or hyper focusing on and criminalizing every action or, locking up black people is not going to end crime in black communities. If anything, it exacerbates the problem. And I feel like without trying to solve the underlying systemic problems, all this looks like is just basically like snipping the head off of people that have the highest likelihood of rehabilitation because of their now proximity to street level violence. Yeah, like, is from what I see, like many people see YSL as obviously not a gang, but also a way for other young black artists to come up and no longer be as involved in the street level violence that they may or may not have been involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
There's a good
I
question,
don't.
by the way, for you from one of my mods. It says, I wonder if Fantano sees the record labels being held accountable in the future. They continue to benefit from this crime and often promote it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like record labels have effectively kind of just like wiped their hands of this sort of thing. I mean, look at what happened to Bobby Shmurda. Like these record labels are not like sort of standing up for anybody or coming to save anybody when they land themselves in jail. Like if anything, they're kind of just like benefiting off of the fact that they have their catalog and the rights to their catalog, and they're probably getting streamed even more now. And all they have to do is like sit there and wait, hopefully maybe for the day that they get out of jail, and then they'll make a comeback and they'll get
Yeah.
even more streams off of it. The thing is like it's kind of hard to say or tell whether or not there's going to be any kind of like accountability, because are they doing anything illegal? Technically, no, because when the artists sign to these labels, they're signing the rights to their work away. It's ultimately
Yeah.
the labels own the master tapes. They could do with whatever they could do with it whatever they want. The artists do that for an agreement of, yeah, I get a cut of whatever streams or whatever, or I get an advance from you to make the record, so on and so forth. So the artists kind of already signed their art and their work away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And if
They're
there's
super
any kind of
exploitative. Like even if you're not
they have
going to
to be
jail.
moral. Yeah, I mean, if there's going to be any kind of repercussions, they have to be moral repercussions. Like audiences have to stop accepting it. Artists have to stop working within this framework. Especially since like there are a lot more options now in terms of doing things independently. You don't need to be attached to a record label anymore in order to be a successful artist or be a successful musician. I really don't know what the repercussions are or will be. I mean, there's if there's any coming, I would say they've been a long time coming, not just for stuff like this, but over just like all the disgusting, awful, thrown together, half-assed posthumous records that we've been getting over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
Trying to like bleed every last like red cent out of some dead artist's discography.
Yeah.
That's like one of the worst sort of trends and things to kind of come out over the past 5 or 6 years or so.
Yeah, I mean it's gross, but they will milk it. They will maximize value wherever they can, and they demonstrably profit off of dead black people. Straight up, like when your artist is a up and coming artist and he goes to jail, you're making more money than you normally would because it's hit or miss. It's like I feel like they see it as like legitimacy and also another method to like promote their music. Same with when they, die. Just, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, those are some of the questions I had. I don't know. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything popping off? Anything I should be aware of?
Not that I could think of. I mean, I would encourage you to maybe give the new Chainsmokers another chance. You might.
Yeah.
There's that new project with Skinner and Tom Greenwood and Tom York, from Radiohead, The Smile. That's pretty interesting. There's a new Florence and the Machine record out. That one sounds pretty fun. But outside of that, the rock fans, they might like the new Black Keys record. A little bit of some blues guitar in the mix there. But outside of that, I would just say, this week it's really about Kendrick Lamar and the Chainsmokers. Those are the two standout albums of the week.
Yeah. Who's to say which is better? Probably Chainsmokers, but I'm a little biased.
Yeah, I really thought Chainsmokers were going to pull through with Album of the Year. I wouldn't say they quite got there, but it was close.
What do you think about Freddie Gibbs reportedly being jumped by Benny the Butcher in Buffalo, New York?
Freddie Gibbs is like, man, he's. I don't know what he's doing, but like he's really playing with fire. Like he's getting way too many beefs. getting in way too many beefs. Like with this and Jim Jones and so on and so forth. There's just too much beefing going on. Like, and for a guy like Freddie, like it doesn't seem necessary because Freddie's not, as far as he sort of portrays himself, like he's not in a criminal gang. He's not, in any sort of organization that would have beef or blood with any organization or any other organization. He's just like, as an individual, just like talking some shit. And I don't know if it's all worth it, especially if you're someone who's on his level where you're on sort of more like an independent track. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like it's one thing if you're like on that Pusha T level and you're going at a snuggle bunny like Drake, who is not going to do anything. You know what I mean? But like Freddie is fucking with other dudes who are just as street as he is, like if not more in some cases. And like I would say I'm happy that I guess it only came to blows. I mean, I guess like one thing that I could say is like Benny the Butcher obviously understands that he has a lot going on in his life and in his career too, and like doing anything that would,
There's a video, by the way, of him fighting 20 dudes at the same time.
Oh my God. But doing anything that would like put him legally in very deep hot water would probably not be a great idea. So, maybe just like keeping it to fighting is probably for the best. But like either way, I don't know. I think Freddie Gibbs is getting in too much beef. He's getting in more beef than I think an artist at his level needs to, especially like, again, he's getting in beef with artists who he's done tracks with Benny before. He's done tracks with the Griselda gang. So I don't understand like, why all of a sudden there's bad blood there. And I wonder if it was entirely necessary.
I think he thought because he's hanging out with Joe Rogan, I think he thought it translated to martial arts skills in the real world, because this shit literally looks like the Old Boy hallway scene, dude. What the fuck? There's like, I mean, Old Boy hallway scene if Old Boy was getting his ass beat though. I mean, it's crazy. They're fucking jumping him like 20 dudes.
I mean, I hope that's
like there's a dude with a hairline like this. Like there's a dude that looks like he was an accountant. Like what and he just like came in his fucking in his cargo pants and his like crossbody bag on the side, and he's just like whipping his crossbody bag around just to fucking get a couple kicks in. It's crazy. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's a lot. You've really got to have said or done something that pisses people off pretty deeply in order to get the crossbody bag guy in there.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, well, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. This was wonderful. I loved having you on to educate me on music and what's going on, what's happening. I will take your advice and I will listen to music.
Yeah, that's my advice. Listen to music.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
The Needle Drop on Twitch, The Needle Drop on YouTube, Fantano on YouTube as well. What I recommend is that you go back and you go jam some of those old Asher Roth tracks.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that right after. I love college.
Yeah, just like get that nostalgic feeling back.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, folks. That was Anthony Fantano, Melon Man, internet's busiest music nerd, also known as, I guess he's the music review guy on The Needle Drop. Hey, if you like this video, please subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any future videos.